Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Luke Stokel, and I want to welcome you on behalf of the National Institute on Aging to the Prepare Challenge virtual pitch. So this is Prepare, the pioneering research for early prediction of Alzheimer's and related dementias challenge, and designed, to advance data and algorithms that detect earlier, fairly and usefully used data. And phase two really pushed teams to leverage two powerful but scalable signals for social determinants of health and acoustic data. And we really want to thank, well, first of all, very excited to hear from all of you for these pitches. I'm super excited. This has been a couple of years in the making, and this is like the best part of the process is getting to this point. So I'm super excited. Thank you very much to Driven Data, to Julia, to everybody for making this happen, for our judges, mentors, and everyone who contributed data sets, feedback, and tough questions that made this possible and successful. And especially to you guys who took what we gave you and turned it into what we'll see today. And so I want to think a little, I want everyone to think a little bit as they do their pitches about translation. And what I mean by that are a few questions. Does performance hold across setting and subgroups? Are we reducing disparities or quietly encoding them? Can others audit, replicate, and build on this work? And would patients, care partners, and clinicians choose to use it at the end of the day? So those are things that I'm going to be thinking about. And the goal in my mind is not just to, create clever models, but a path to earlier action, better trials, and better lives eventually, which is the mission of the NIH. So I will zip it. Looking forward to hearing from all of you and learning from all of you today. And I really, really want to close by thanking everybody again.
As many of you are no doubt aware, advancing our ability to understand and detect Alzheimer's disease is an urgent and difficult scientific problem. In the United States, 2025 estimate is that 7.2 million people live with the devastating consequences of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. There is not a single known biological cause or a cure. But we do know from the decades of work to date that has been done, which have included many successes as well as dead ends and kind of false summits in understanding, this is an extremely complex disease process. Currently, though, there is a lot of hope and opportunity in understanding the earliest stages of the disease. By the time someone is diagnosed or showing clear signs of decline, the disease may have been quietly advancing for years or even decades. And so identifying characteristics of these early preclinical stages of Alzheimer's disease has the potential to give us both insights into the causes and risks, but also to potentially enable treatment. So more recently, actually, basically at the time since this project was conceived, the last couple years, new treatments have emerged that seem really promising. And so it might currently or soon be possible to slow or stop disease progression if we can identify it early. Along these lines, there's a great deal of longitudinal research being done that can help with early identification and diagnosis. But we don't have to wait for the results of longitudinal studies to work on early prediction. Machine learning offers an immediate opportunity to potentially catch Alzheimer's disease at its earliest stages by better understanding and prediction of it. That is what the Prepare Challenge has aimed to do, to advance early prediction of AD and ADRD, so Alzheimer's disease-related dementias, with machine learning. As Luke mentioned, this was conceived of and sponsored by the National Institute on Aging, with support from NASA Tournament Lab and implemented by our team at Driven Data. The goal of this project was to assemble a challenge in order to discover the best data, methods, and strategies for predicting Alzheimer's early with machine learning. And there were specific priorities placed on explainable models and methods that could work on a population level, not just for people who have participated in research studies in the past. This project used crowdsourcing. It was a 3-part innovation challenge that offered cash prizes to people who volunteered their knowledge and expertise and competed to generate the best submissions. Crowdsourcing is an extremely effective way to advance difficult problems because it allows us to mobilize the expertise of a very large community who has a varied range of perspectives and skills, and who can together quickly iterate on approaches and explore the problem space, often finding the limits of what's possible now. It's a method that is commonly and successfully used for advancing hard problems in data science and machine learning. And at Driven Data, we use competitions in exactly this way to help solve difficult and important social, environmental, and scientific problems. And this works pretty well because, as Joy's Law reminds us, regardless of the field that you're in, most of the smartest people work for someone else. This challenge has spanned several years, and it has included 3 phases, 3 challenge launches, and 3 rounds of judging. Getting to where we are now, from May 30th, 2023, which was the first project meeting that we had, has been a large and extremely collaborative effort. And Luke mentioned the major groups involved in that. And I just want to echo his appreciation to both the core organizing team at NIA and NASA, all of the other folks who worked to conceive of the challenge and helped review the design, refine the rules, and check all the boxes to launch, and also to recruit our incredible solvers. We are also so grateful to our judges. We wouldn't have winners if it weren't for the experts who devoted their time and attention to reading, rating, and discussing and advocating for submissions across all of the phases. And of course, there would be absolutely no progress on this problem without the solvers who brought their expertise to bear on this problem and spent a lot of time crafting their submissions. So all of this work from all of these people has built to these final culminating events, this pitch event that we're at now, as well as an upcoming winner showcase next month at NIH, where we'll give our final awards. So what were the challenge phases? There were 3 phases. They focused on different aspects of advancing early prediction. In phase 1, solvers look for suitable open data, because not only do we need to find large, representative, and accessible data sets that could be used in a competition, but also because we were looking for novel insights into the causes of Alzheimer's, we wanted people to look for novel data sources beyond typical clinical research data. That data is incredibly valuable, but it doesn't capture the breadth of people's real-world behavior and cognition. So we imagined that data that captured people's genuine everyday cognition could complement research data and possibly support prediction earlier at scale, reach more representative populations, and be more cost-effective than current approaches. In phase 1, we had 376 people join. They formed teams and created 40 submissions that judges reviewed. And there were 5 winning teams in phase 1 who either found or created or curated data that spanned a range of modalities, which included acoustic speech data, synthetic EHR data, population survey data, and novel functional connectivity features from MRI. We selected and prepared 2 of these winning data sets to serve as the training and testing data in the subsequent phase of the challenge. In phase 2, which was open to anyone, teams developed machine learning models in 2 parallel prize tracks, one for each data set. In one track, teams predicted concurrent diagnosis from acoustic speech data in the Dementia Bank, which is a repository of speech research data. In the other track, teams prospectively predicted cognitive decline using survey data that focused on social determinants of health from the Mexican Health and Aging Study, which is part of the Harmonized Cognitive Assessment Protocol Network, whose center is the US's Health and Retirement Study. Both of these data sources are also funded by the NIA, which was not a requirement, but I think just reflects NIA's strong investment in this space. 638 unique participants joined in phase 2 and made over 3,400 prediction submissions. Only the teams whose models were in the top 15 on the leaderboard were able to submit reports, and compete for prizes, both overall prizes that were ranked and explainability prizes. And from the 34 submissions that we received, there were 10 winning teams whose work really wowed the judges. And these are the teams who were invited to the subsequent phase and who are here today. These winning teams were invited to phase 3. They spent several months refining their solutions, making them more generalizable, often by incorporating new data, and then summarizing what they learned in the process. So again, today's event is a culmination not just of their hard work and the work of the project team, but also the hundreds of other participants in the prior phases. Today, each team will share what they did and what they learned in a 5-minute presentation. After all the teams have presented, there will be time to address audience questions that have been asked in the Q&A during talks or that are asked live. The team order is arbitrary, so you're going to hear a mix of the two data tracks, which again were acoustic speech data and social determinants of health data, which was survey-based. The next presentation is from Team Explainable AD. This is a team of engineers who specialize in analyzing medical data, especially image and audio data. And the members of the team are not strangers to prize-winning solutions with driven data. They've won multiple other competitions as well. All right, we'll pass it over to Explainable AD.
So, hello everyone. This is Team Explainable AD, and I'd like to share our solution about the phase 3 to about the generalizability of our new model. And a brief overview. So in phase 3, we improved our model diagnostic performance and interpretability by developing and integrating novel and clinically relevant temporal fluency features. This initiative followed our phase 2 success, where we achieved first place ranking on the competition. So our approach was motivated by finding that our classification model was already learning to identify the influential audio regions. We engineered 3 specific biomarkers, which we saw a statistically significant difference between healthy controls and individuals with ADRD, confirming their diagnostic value. These features were used to provide additional supervision and our model to help our model achieve better performance, yielding tangible gains in cross data set validation. So our work provided strong evidence that a focus on the detailed temporal speech pattern is a key avenue for future performance gains. And so since we already sorry, one. Yeah, so in phase 2, our model has already achieved the first place. It has a really low log loss compared to the other teams, and in this phase, we can even improve it by using the 3 biomarkers as auxiliary tasks. So these are the results, and we also built it into a software that I like to show you guys quickly on how it works. So basically, this is a software, and you just need to upload this MP3 file here, and put in the age and the sex, the gender of the patient, and it will give you the model's prediction results. For this patient, we see that we think that it has a 61.4% chance of getting ADRD and it's at moderate risk. And these are the analysis. We can see that this is a converted MEL spectrogram of the MP3 file, and this is the model's class activation mapping. We do see that there are some activation in this 5 to 10 seconds area and 17 to 23 seconds area. And this is our new biomarker, which is the temporal speaking fluency score. And we do see that a drop in between 5 to 10 seconds and the 20 to 25 seconds. And these are the different types of disfluency analysis that our model can also produce. We can see that there are some block prolongation, filter, and the partial repetition. And we have this audio playback here that we can take a look. So at 5 to 10 seconds, we do see that there is a temporal.
I don't think. It's hard to tell her expression. She's also not noticing that the children are about.
So we can easily localize this or any type of block or prolongation, filler or partial repetition. And we do see there's a large block in this 17 seconds to 25 region. So
There's a tree with a ongoing scene. It looks like a cat got up in a tree, and the little girl, it belongs to a little girl.
yeah, so you can clearly hear that there are some type of disfluency in this region. And this is just a proof of concept of what could be used in a clinic. And from a software perspective, it's very easy for people to use. Just need to upload this MP3 file and we will generate this analysis for you to easily localize the region of interest. Yeah, so in this phase, we used a multitask learning approach, and we have this class activation map and fluency map for decision visualization, and we also used the Q1 2.5 Omni for fluency scoring, and we also trained a semantic BERT analysis to capture the cognitive impairment signals. Yeah, and these are the three biomarkers that I just showed you in this software. You can see this very easily of what the model output is. And we did a cross-domain transfer learning, and we validated we do think that in order for the model to perform even better, we do need some type of standard operation protocols for data collection to reduce bias, because we do see that in the Spanish data set, it remained a little bit challenging. So you can see here that with the added features, our log loss has decreased on every other data sets besides the Spanish data set. So there are some distributional divergences here, and we don't have that many samples. Yeah, and the future directions that we should focus on is, one, to develop standardized data collection protocols, and if possible, we should obtain expert annotated high precision ROI labels, which can help the model learn and identify these regions. And saliency-based automatic ROI selection models, and benchmark normalization and federated learning solutions for data privacy. And thank you so much. This is my presentation. Sorry, it's a little bit more than 5 minutes, but yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Excellent. And I failed to mention, but it was mentioned in the presentation, that Explainable AD won the first place prize in phase 2 in the acoustic track. Next, we are going to hear from Harris and Kielo, who were the acoustic second place winners in phase 2. This is a computer science master's student and an expert communicator, content creator, and comedian, which is, I think, a driven data first to have a comedian data science prize winner. With that, I'll pass it over to Harris and Kielo.
Perfect. So my name is Matthew Kilo, and I will be presenting population adaptive speech analysis for equitable AD-ADRD detection. Our phase 3 goal was to transform a purely predictive model into something with clinical relevance. Our phase 2 model fell short in 2 critical ways. First, generalization was hurt by shortcut learning. Our model showed evidence that it was exploiting dataset artifacts rather than identifying general biomarkers. Second, our model was a black box created with an ensemble of difficult to interpret components. For clinical deployment, we wanted explainable decisions that clinicians could communicate to patients, their families, and use to guide next steps. Our new model addresses both concerns by restructuring the prediction problem around 3 orthogonal components that separate what the previous model conflates. Our 3 components each address different aspects of speech data. First, who is speaking, the demographic data, what they are saying, linguistic information, and how they are saying it, paralinguistic features. Each component uses human interpretable features that feed into the final diagnosis. Clinicians can see whether a decision is driven by voice changes, language difficulties, or demographic risk factors, addressing both explainability and generalizability. To do this, we made 3 innovations. First, AD-ADRD research faces a fundamental data limitation. By contrast, large language models like ChatGPT have been trained on hundreds of billions of words, giving them extensive knowledge of healthy, unimpeded language patterns. We use this insight to create synthetic training data. We identified 66 linguistic markers from clinical literature, symptoms like pronoun overuse without clear antecedents and conceptual fixations. And using ChatGPT-4, we created 100 new scenarios inspired by cookie theft, then generated paired examples showing how someone with healthy cognition versus someone exhibiting each symptom might describe the same scene. We then trained binary classifiers for each symptom and applied these classifiers to transcripts of the challenge dataset. In the same spirit, we leveraged large amounts of public speech data to learn a representation of healthy GMAPS features. The GMAPS features represent paralinguistic characteristics of voice and are well established in AD-ADRD research, but face the same data limitation. In the Prepare Challenge, we had roughly 2,000 clinical samples. Instead of learning disease patterns directly from this limited data, we learned healthy patterns from abundant data first. We used the Mozilla Common Voice dataset in English and Spanish, filtered to speakers over 50, yielding 250 hours of healthy speech data. We trained a CNN transformer encoder using contrastive learning on the GMAPS features generated from this dataset to learn a rich representation of healthy elderly voice, quality, timing, and prosody patterns. Starting with GMAPS ensured our approach was purely sound-based, capturing acoustic changes without confounding linguistic content. This representation learning approach allowed us to identify AD-ADRD patients as outliers from established healthy baselines, rather than trying to learn disease patterns from limited clinical data alone. Our learned representations allowed richer analysis compared to standard average pooling that was used on GMAPS features in phase 2. The final innovation tied these 3 approaches together. Our hierarchical Bayesian framework combined all 3 components while directly addressing both clinical challenges. The framework provided uncertainty quantification and allowed clinicians to understand which factors are driving each prediction, enabling them to guide treatment decisions and communicate findings to patients and family. Our approach achieved more consistent results across corpuses and improved results for underrepresented groups. Spanish speakers, patients over 80, and those with incomplete secondary education all showed meaningful improvements. Our synthetic data for the linguistic approach identified pronoun overuse and conceptual fixation as 2 of the most informative linguistic markers. However, paralinguistic features dominated 62% of predictions, demographics led to 33% of predictions, and linguistics only led to 5% of predictions, highlighting the importance of voice quality changes. We hope our work represents a novel proof of concept showing how to bridge modern advances in AI to AD-ADRD research. We believe there's significant potential for our approach to be improved by advocating for additional diverse speech collection, including spontaneous speech from healthy populations, as well as working with clinicians to refine synthetic data approaches. We can push explainability further by studying the specific GMAPS features that are activated in our model. And finally, the ultimate test will be if this approach can be validated by being applied to new populations. Thank you for taking the time to listen. And for any follow-up questions, feedback, or interest in collaboration, please email myself or Harris. Thanks.
Thank you. We are sorely lacking like an applause option for attendees. But thank you for the presentation. Next up, we have IGC Pharma, a team representing a company that's based in Maryland. They earned special recognition for generalizability in the acoustic track in phase 2. And this team won a prize in phase 1 as well, which was focused on finding data. They were the team who identified the potential of using MHOS data that was used in the social determinants track. So they found the MHOS data for social determinants, and then they pivoted tracks and earned a prize in the acoustic track. So with that, I believe that they pre-recorded. Some members may be present here. So Julie, would you please play IGC Pharma's presentation?
Good afternoon, we are the IGC Pharma team. During this phase, we developed a framework that enables us to have a better understanding of the model performance and the generalizability across languages and tasks. Compared to phase 2, we included new studies from the Dementia Bank repository. As metrics, we added accuracy and area under the precision recall curve, which is important for the scenarios on unbalanced datasets. Lastly, we follow a standard pipeline to enhance the voice quality of the audios. In terms of the model, we started from the Whisper classification architecture, a pre-trained model for speech-related tasks. We implemented audio segmentation due to Whisper's limitation to process audios longer than 30 seconds. We segmented the audios and used the segments as inputs. And to obtain the participant diagnosis, we evaluate an ensemble prediction and temporal modeling using a second transformer at the participant level. We also implemented early and late feature efficient techniques for metadata and audio features.
This is the distribution of the diagnosis classes, and from our experimentation we found that overall ensemble prediction with Whisper worked best compared to only using the first 30 seconds of audio or using a per participant approach. However, OD, which struggles the most for classification, showed a slight benefit from participant-level temporal modeling on 10-second chunks. Additionally, neither early nor late feature fusion was effective. We argue that the audio alone has enough information to classify between diagnoses, and those additional features introduce noise in the models or might need other fusion techniques. Some models even learn to ignore those additional features. Using neural feature probing on Whisper representations, we found that the spectral dynamics, pauses and silence, and temporal rhythm features are the strongest contributors to cognitive state classification. These findings align with prior literature showing that pause patterns and alterations in speech rate and rhythm are markers of dementia, particularly in AD.
For generalizability, we used two main approaches. First, out of distribution experiments by extracting a language or task to evaluate how the remaining data generalizes to the held out subset. This allows us to identify the most relevant data for training. Here we show the data distributions of all tasks and languages. Our experiments focused on discourse, image description, and word fluency tasks, and English and Spanish. Here we present the accuracy comparing the baseline from Whisper with the out-of-distribution experiments in each task subset. We found that, interestingly, training in all tasks but word fluency generalizes well to AD and other dementias, and even improves AD classification. However, to take advantage of the richness of word fluency, other AI techniques can be incorporated to process features related to semantics. Additionally, training without image description generalized well for AD, while without discourse generalized best for MCI, suggesting that these tasks are less critical for accurate classification in those groups. However, given the strong imbalance toward image description, incorporating more samples of the other tasks is recommended to strengthen generalizability. On the language side, other languages generalized well for detecting other dementias in English, while they generalized to AD in Spanish. From these experiments, overall cross-language generalization remained limited, pointing to the need for either collecting more data in underrepresented groups or an alternative pipeline to account for linguistic diversity, which connects to our second generalizability approach. This consists of a translation pipeline due to a high imbalance between languages. First, we transcribe non-English audios with CRISPR-Whisper, then we translate them with Llama, and finally, using OpenVoice, we create new translated audios while keeping the original voice features. Our results show the change in accuracy when using the translation pipeline during inference compared to not using it. Our approach demonstrates that translation allows us to transfer modern learning from English to other languages. We found improvements in most non-controlled diagnoses, particularly in AD for Spanish and Mandarin, and in healthy controls for Spanish. However, this approach is limited by performance on the open source tools. To conclude, Temporal modeling benefited other dementias, which is the most challenging class, while ensemble per participant was the best strategy for AD. For healthy controls and MCI, both techniques had similar performances. Feature fusion techniques didn't improve the model. We argue that the audio alone has enough information to classify between diagnoses, and we recommend focusing efforts on data collection and refined AI modeling. Our out-of-distribution testing shows that excluding any task or language reduces generalizability for healthy controls and MCI, highlighting the need for more diverse data collection. While some tasks and dementia classes generalize well across groups, rebalancing task distribution remains essential for improving overall generalizability. And finally, our translation strategy proved to classify many diagnoses better by building on the training in English. This approach would benefit from a more accurate transcription and translation pipeline that maintains the voice features without an accent bias. Thank you.
Thank you, IGC Pharma. Next up, we have NXGTR. This is a team of one who placed second in the social determinants track in phase 2. And we'll hear from Carlos, a scientist working on fraud protection at Amazon.
Thank you, Hannah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Trying to figure out how to share the screen.
Carlos, if you hit the green arrow on the bottom dashboard, that will allow you to share.
Found it. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
Is it looking full screen?
Yes, yeah, you're in presentation mode now.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for attending. So my name is Carlos. I'm going to present what I had work on phase 3. This is going to be table of contents. Due to time, I will just skip this. Let me start with the phase 2 model. Basically, it was a tailored solution for the MHAS data. I found that it was easy to get a very high score used by using a technique called target-based encoding. This is a way to transform categorical variables into a continuous space, and just doing that basically was able to bump the performance something around top 6 in the competition alone. This is something that I was not very happy about, because it seems to be just picking up some artifacts of the data that it's not going to generalize. It's going to work for the competition. It's going to place you high in the leaderboard, but in real life, it's not really suitable. So part of my main focus in phase 3 was to make sure that none of this sort of trickery that you could use in competitions, it's actually remaining in the final solution, and it is truly something that could generalize. For this, what I designed is this what I call the ADRD model architecture, and it's just basically a way to generalize the problem in a way that it is somehow agnostic to the data itself, meaning I could just throw different types of data and let the model figure out both how to process it, how to build the model, and how to self-validate it. One thing that I realized is that when I was more rigorous on the performance evaluation, I couldn't justify some of the decisions that I was making. I couldn't find a scientific evidence that the small deltas in performance were actually statistical significant. So I built that platform within the model itself, so that it sort of self-regularizes itself and it starts to drop things if performance doesn't increase in a statistical significant way. It also modifies the way it predicts. I think the competition itself was asking for some cognitive score. I modify it so that it could provide a cognitive score itself, or a patient-based probability of high degradation. There's not gonna be time to describe that in detail, but what I was trying to come up with this is um, even though we might have two patients with an identical cognitive score at a given point in time, their degradation over the next X years might be totally different, even though at that point in time they were similar. So the platform looks like this, and then you can just put different data fields. We have this data set adapter that will make sure that you don't have to mess with the model. My hope was to try to abstract all the machine learning components so that the research community could play without having to worry about that. Another thing that I was doing is it is very easy to overfeed a data set of this dimension. Like even if you try very hard, there's sort of all sort of trickery that you could do to boost your performance at the expense of not generalizing in real life. So then I brought different data sets that you can see here from different countries. It's US, it's India, Costa Rica. There's a very interesting one from the National Alzheimer's Coordination Center. And basically, I apply the exact same process to each of them, and in a way that if there is any trickery that to boost performance on the competition, it will fail to generalize over the multiple data sets, and they are super diverse. Number of features are very, very different, same number of samples and so on. So in terms of experiment design, I was playing with some sort of a ablation test, add and remove things, play with feature selections. There's a bias reduction way. There's a feature that I implemented. I don't think I linked it here, but in a way for you to identify how much focus you want to give in certain population. For instance, maybe we want to model to focus equally on older people than younger individuals, or basically it works for any arbitrary cohort that you want to select. So research can just set, and the model would just focus on those. Then it's different targets. One thing that I had to do is introduce this concept of Z-normalized scores. Definitely nothing new per se, but when we try to generalize over multiple data sets, the scales matter, and you are no longer able to compare directly if you don't have that. So here's a bunch of the results. Not gonna go into all the details, but it's just basically a combination of multiple data sets under different situations with different feature sets, with bias mitigation. Specifically, education was a feature that produces two good results on its own. So there's clearly some bias going on there. There's some very interesting MRI and PET scan data as well. I'm gonna skip for the sake of time here. The predictions. This is just basically what I had talked before. One is the cognitive strength, which is just this continuous number that represents where you sit in the spectrum. And on the right-hand side, what I call the personal health score, which it is based on your situation, how likely is that you might develop a strong degradation into the future. Feature contributions can be analyzed with this sort of of plot where researchers can access to how different features contribute to the model. The model itself already builds several different ensembles, and then can provide with final results. And we also use it for uncertainty estimations. Top findings was probably the most interesting part for me. Once I start to get deeper into the multiple datasets, things started to pop up. I'm not an expert in the field, so I'm not so sure how realistic they are, but I went and then checked other papers in the field, and it seems they arrived to similar conclusions, so that was exciting. Not gonna dive into details, but there was this C-reactive protein that seems to be somehow correlated. They're not super strong signals, but you have something there. Human motor performance, there seems to be some clear indications there. And my favorite one, it is about D3 supplements and how they impact the long-term likelihood of developing the disease. I had no idea about this. I found it from the data, then I check, and it seems to be a thing based on papers, and that's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next up, we'll have ROSCA team. This team includes a World Bank economist, a doctor of quantitative methods, and a doctor of social statistics. And they earned first place in phase 2 in the social determinants track.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, and you're in full screen now.
Yeah. So good. So I will present this submission on behalf of our team. We called it Early Detection of ADRD, a robust, fair, and explainable framework for cognitive score prediction. So as for the data sets, we used 4 survey data sets from 4 countries. So one was originally presented in phase 2 from Mexico, and also 3 other countries that we added together and aligned those data sets to merge them into one. As for the target, it was the same general cognitive function score and predictors for like social determinants of health, demographic, health condition, and functional status. So just to get an overview of our methodology. So again, we combine different data sets from different countries into one, then fitted 3 different boosting models, then blend their predictions together, and then not only as an output, not only get the predictions themselves, but also we added in the phase 3 uncertainty estimates and some sort of explainability reports. So as for the model selection, in the phase 3, we ended up sticking to a simpler model without additional feature engineering to improve the explainability, but also stick to the blending solution to have a robust predictions. So we also tested the robustness by removing random number of features and observations. And as you can see from this plot, the solution is quite robust in terms of that you can basically remove like almost up to 50% of the observations, and the RMC score will be more or less the same. We also try to test some sort of generalizability by country level. So on this plot, in the first column, you can see the RMC score for the model if you train it on the 70% of the selected country and test on the 30% of selected country. In the second column, you can see the simulation where you train it on 70% of selected country, for instance, only on India, but also include other countries, but then test only on India. So, and for most of the countries here, you can see a slight drop in RMC, meaning that we have some kind of cross-country learning. And in the third part here, we can see what will happen if you only train a model on one country, for instance, on India, and train on like only other countries, for instance, on Mexico, UK, and US, and test only on India, right? And of course, you can see a drop here in RMC, quite a significant one. But then on the other hand, you can use it as an estimate what will happen if you kind of add another country into the mix, where you, for instance, didn't collect the cognitive scores, but you still want to get the prediction right. We can also see the performance of the model by different groups, by different categories, and we have some disparities here, right? So you can see that, for instance, for UK, it's performing worse, or for people with primary education. And we can try to kind of reduce those disparities by adjusting the model with RMC-based inverse frequency weights and to improve the subgroup fairness. And in this table, you can see the fairness index, which is basically an index calculated from 0 to 1, where 1 is better and 0 is worse. And we can see that after adjusting by country, we have better fairness index, but also we get, as a result, higher RMC, meaning the model performs worse. So it's always a trade-off in that sense. We also provide in the phase 2 uncertainty estimates with confidence intervals for each individual prediction using the Jackknife Plus method that allows for as a way for clinical practitioners to have a better control and better understanding of the predictions, may be useful for some decision-making process in that sense. And also in terms of explainability, we provide a coefficient from regressing shape values on feature values that allows us to capture the direction and strength of each feature's effect on predicting scores. And here you can see the top 10 and top 10 positive coefficients and top 10 negative coefficients for this whole pipeline. So as a future directions, we might focus on developing subgroup-specific models and expanding data collections in some specific subpopulations. Maybe also integrating additional data sources such as genetics or digital biomarkers, or also extend the analysis to additional countries to validate the results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The team going next is Brain Science Lab. This team is a neuroscientist and a physician data scientist postdoc working together at Johns Hopkins Neurology. They earned, in the acoustic track, a special recognition award for generalizability in phase 2. All right, I'll pass things to Brain Science Lab.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for the great opportunity and this amazing challenge. My name is Yara Shirzadeh. I'm a postdoc at Johns Hopkins, and I'm presenting our method and approach for approaching the Prepare Challenge acoustic track for detecting AD MCI. So as you all know, Alzheimer's is a neurodegenerative, very important disease that can affect elderly. Early detection of Alzheimer's disease is critical, mainly because most of the current available treatments are only prevent neurodegeneration, prevent worsening. So early detection of Alzheimer's disease is very important for these drugs to be effective, especially provides non-invasive, low-cost, easy attainable biomarker. So the aim of this challenge and the aim of this approach was to robustly detect Alzheimer's disease and classify Alzheimer's disease across different sites and languages. So this is the pipeline main structure of our approach. We split the data, the MP3 files, the speech data, voices into testing and training data set based on either language or the site that these data were collected. We pre-processed them, extracted features using wake-to-wake, whisper, and OpenSMILE-driven features, combined them with available age and sex data, trained model on the training data set using five-fold cross-validation and overall training, and tested these the final model, the best performing model on the testing data set. So the data we collected for our final approach in the phase 3 were from Dementia Bank, address, and the other data sets available. we pre-process them and we'll turn them into 30-second chunks of voice data and from only English, Spanish, and Mandarin data sets. Then we try to create models that were clinically usable. So either based on MMSE or based on the final diagnosis, whether the patients had Alzheimer's disease, had MCI, or patients were normal. For the data that were not labeled in the phase 3, we try to extract their diagnosis based on MMSE score threshold and converted these scores to MCI and full dementia. So after training of our data set, these are the performance results that are shown for our final trained model, which is TAP-PFN, which is a pre-trained transformer-based tabular classification and regression model. And as you can see, so the class 0, 1, 2 are the normal MCI and AD dementia. And so these are the results for the performance of our model on the testing data set provided by Prepare Challenge Phase 2. Another important part of our approach for the Phase 3 was to see how generalizable is this approach actually. So we created specific data sets only from a single site, for example, PIT in this case, and trained a model on other sites and just tested it on this. And as you can see, a problem that we had was that it misclassified, especially the MCI class, which is our class 1, it classified them poorly. And the reason could be the different data acquisition MMSE classification, Alzheimer's classification, or MMSE acquisition across different sites. So it came to our minds to take other approaches for better, a more robust and generalizable approach. So we took two other approaches. One was based on just being binary classification of being normal or abnormal, which improved significantly, improved both the performance and generalizability pretty significantly. So as you can see, the AUC provided by the just binary classification for internal validation was 0.80. For the test provided by Prepare Challenge Phase 2 was 79, and for external validation was also 0.80, which is much more robust. We saw a little poor performance on the Spanish other language external validation data set. Another approach that we took was to actually regress the MMSE and to see how can we use a composite score driven by the traditional model to predict the MMSE score, which is a clinically relevant score coming out of these patients. And we reached these results, which shows the mean absolute error of predicting MMSE of 2.6. Also, for explainability, we evaluated the feature importance of the model, and as you can see, the most influential factors were features driven by transformers-based deep learning approaches like Whisper and Wave2Wake. And we created a demo which shows an app demo which takes a pre-recorded, or it can record the data, and it shows what factor contributes best. So we classify these data based on the voice quality, emotional factor, temporal energy, and demographics. So the other approaches that were tested to see if they contribute into improving the performance of our model is to we created patches of 10 seconds to increase the number of our training data set, which did not affect. We applied augmentation to these to our training data set, including changes of frequency, including noise and etc., which also did not affect. We tried to do ensembled models as well as ensembling the voice data in combination of a spectrogram imaging data, which also did not improve our final results and did not improve the robustness of our model. And finally, we tried to train transformers data like Whisper. So pre-trained transformers on the directly on the voice word classification, which also either overfitted or did not fit properly because of the low number of data. So for future directions, as you all know, speech can be affected by many different factors, and Alzheimer's disease itself, the nature of the disease is multifactorial. So it is important for us to gain data from many different disease-related features from the body. For example, we can combine these with more demographics data, more clinical data, as well as more blood and imaging biomarkers, as our lab recently validated and invented the first FDA-approved biomarker. So combining these, the speech biomarker with other biomarkers can improve the early detection of Alzheimer's disease. Also, extracting better quality, better data, higher quality with more standard approach can help us build better models and better approaches for early detection of this disease. I want to say a special thanks to Dr. Mulekar, my PI at Hopkins, for his help throughout this project. Here's our email. Please feel free to ask us any question if you have. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you for that presentation. Our final team is a team that earned 2 awards in Phase 2 in the acoustic track. They earned special recognition for data processing and an explainability bonus prize. This is Team Speech Care, a large research lab at Columbia University Irving Medical Center whose work focuses on cognitive impairment detection. Right, Speech Care, I'll pass to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see your slides.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. So my name is Mariam Zonuri, and I am assistant professor at Columbia University. So I found this lab in 2020, and it was mostly because I also had a connection with Alzheimer's disease because my aunt in 2020, she had Alzheimer, and I had a close relationship with her, but other people couldn't recognize that. So it was always in my mind that how we can use speech for early detection. And at Columbia, we developed a speech care. It's a comprehensive framework for early detection of cognitive impairment, especially mild cognitive impairment. So the first component of this framework focus on pre-processing data that you see here, that includes a component for noise reduction, peak normalization, and transcription, and also abnormality detection. And something that was very interesting in our findings was related to diarization, that we use both large language model, Llama, and also Whisper, and the performance of diarization outperformed NeMo from NVIDIA. So the second component, actually the structure of the model. So the model can accept any data. So it can be any type of speech data, so spectrogram or waveform or text, and also the clinical data, so the clinical notes or structured data. And also we have a speech detect here. That speech detect, so because we are also working with hospitals, in some hospitals they don't have a high computational resources. So a speech detect is a kind of needs less computational resources. We can extract handcrafted features such as, for example, pitch or frequency parameters, MFCC, and other linguistic parameters to kind of combine them for final prediction. And the most important part of this framework is the adaptive gating fusion network that can weight each feature set based on their So based on their importance, and then have a final outcome. And then we tested the generalizability of the model on the different corpora from the dementia bank that they weren't part of the challenge. And you see here, the model has a really good generalizability using different techniques of transfer learning, and also for some of the, for example, for Lou or for Perla, that they were just one category. I mean, they just ADRD. So we use transfer, zero shot inference. And for WLS, we were able, that is just a control group, we were able also to test the specificity of the system that has a really great performance. And then one of the major question is always related to which speech production task we use for the patient. And when in the delivered corpus and told corpus, we found that, for example, the procedural narrative or the story recall, they have a higher rate compared to the other picture description task in the delivered dataset. Or for the CHO dataset, for example, we saw that the park dataset, the park, that is picture related park, has a more clues related to the cognitive impairment compared to market or daddy picture description task. We also have a comprehensive framework for bias mitigation. And here you see that we use advanced technology for oversampling here. And this is a result that is with a voice conversion, that we converted the voice from the control group to the case group. And it really improved because it improved the generalizability, it also improved the performance of the system for the gender and different age categories and also education. And also, one of the major questions that always people ask is that speech clues in the Alzheimer's disease or mild cognitive impairment, they also have an overlap with other disease, for example, with Parkinson, with shortness of breath, aphasia. So how we should recognize that specifically this clues is related to Alzheimer. So here we collected more than 14,000 speech data from different publicly available data set for this disease, and using multitask learning. So we were able to develop a framework that not only that the system can learn from the clues from these different speech for ADRD detection, and then separate the ADRD or MCI from the other tasks, but also can improve the performance because we give the system more data to do that. And another question is that, so now we have this system. So what about if we implement it in the clinical setting? What happens? So the system can learn from the feedback. So we use a continual learning method to to simulate the implementation of the system in clinical setting, and how the system can learn from the clinical feedback without forgetting the previous knowledge. This is something that we also implemented. And another question is related to what about the noise? So background noise is a major challenge in recording audio data. And they also show that using diffusion component that we have in the this speech care, so even it outperform Whisper because this component can help the system to focus on the less noisy or less parts that are less data input that are less noisy. And always, but one of my concerns was that what about if we record the patient speech at home and the patient wants to transfer it to the hospital, for example, using a phone. So how we know that this is a patient voice? So actually we developed also a speaker verification, and we tested it using the Delaware data set, so the performance was 100%. And again, like other teams that they also have a generalizability, we also have a comprehensive generalizability system that not only highlight acoustic clues but also linguistic clues, and also if you implement system on the EHR data, they can, using Llama model. We also can identify significant risk factor associated with this. So we also implemented this. For clinicians, that now we share it with clinicians at Columbia to give us the feedback, so then we can improve the usability or user interface of the system for clinicians, and they were very interested in this work. And as our next step, actually, our goal is to implement it at a VNS Health. It's one of the largest home care agency in New York. And something that we first did, we developed a pipeline for audio recording between patient and nurse encounter. And then we tested also different audio recording devices here, and finally we picked up these that we gave it to clinicians to audio record that. So far, from the help of some funding that we got from NIA and also Columbia and BNSF. So this is a number of the patient that we collected. So 114 is an audio recording between patient and nurses. It's a kind of routine recording. There is no cognitive test. And then we built the system. So we see that is for MCI detection. This is a performance F1 score. And when we add nurses, the crews from the nurses speak with this features of speech from the patient, we see the performance increases. So it's kind of was very interesting for the team and also the clinician at Columbia that they saw that even nurses' language, when the patient has cognitive impairment, it changes. So it kind of help also with early detection. And of course, with the multimodal, if you add data from EHR data and from clinical node, so we achieve the highest performance, and you see that the F1 score here is 80%. And they also have some features here. For example, we found especially that the patient-nurse encounter, if you model the encounter, they provide more informative clues compared to acoustic or linguistic features, especially for mild cognitive impairment detection. And when we compare it with the other features that we extracted from EHR data, you see that the speech clues also, and especially the encounter clues, they also have a top rank compared to the EHR features. And one of something that they also observed is that for Black patients, they are disproportionately affected by Alzheimer. And here we also saw that this bias in speech processing algorithm, even from leading AI companies such as AWS or Whisper from Amazon, they have a bias in transcription. So this is our next step, is to develop a kind of collect sufficient data with some pilot data that they are doing at Columbia to collect the speech from Black patients because of different dialect, and then train the algorithm based on those so we can improve the performance. And thank you so much for your attention. This is our team, the very brilliant student at Columbia University. Thank you.
On behalf of the Challenge team, thank you to all of the presenters and participants of the Prepare Challenge.